Hello everyone, today we're going to be covering the file and hash threat handle TryHackMe room. It's completely free, and in this room we're going to seek to teach enriching file and hash artifacts using threat intelligence. My name is Joshua Speedshock. I'm a cybersecurity analyst and Blue Team content creator. So let's get started. With task 1, introduction. Alright, security operation teams live inside alert queues and triaging. Every entry follows 3 essential steps: verify, enrich, and decide. File and hash intelligence sits squarely in the enrich phase, transforming a lone path or hash value into contextual knowledge within your organization about malicious artifacts that would be identified. Additionally, here are the learning objectives below. By completing this room, you'll be able to interpret suspicious file paths and file names using heuristics, generate and validate file hashes, leverage VirusTotal and MalwareBazaar to enrich newly observed binaries, yay, and extract behavior from sandbox telemetry and map it to MITRE ATT&CK. Awesome. And some prerequisites. Before embarking on the journey, ensure that you have covered the following concepts and rooms, such as familiarity with basic Windows and Linux shell utilities, and intro to cyber threat intelligence. So if you want to do rooms on Windows and Linux shell utilities in TryHackMe, you can do those, but also intro to cyber threat intelligence. So if you double click on that, it will take you to the intro to cyber threat intel, so that way you understand threat intelligence from a more foundational perspective. So that way you can better understand cyber threat intelligence, the overall concept. But also, if you wanted to learn more and overall get familiar with basic Windows and Linux shell utilities. So if I do duplicate, go to silo 1. Let me go to tryhackme.com. And we go to learn, go to walkthroughs, and type in Windows. Let me make it free. There we go. Here are some free Windows rooms, such as like Windows Forensics 1, Windows Basics, Windows Command Line. So for these ones, since we're talking about command line utilities, we're talking about Windows and Linux shell utilities. By clicking on Windows Basics, and you'll be able to learn more about like the foundational understanding of Windows, such as like the Windows graphical interface, file explorer, system settings and personalized Windows environment, task manager, Windows security. Awesome. And also for the Windows command line, you'll learn like the essential Windows commands, like display basic system information, check and troubleshoot network configuration, manage files and folders, and check running processes. And as for Linux, it's the same. You would type in, instead of Windows, you type in Linux, and then free only, and you will learn more about Linux, and overall you can test yourself pertaining to Linux. So that way you better understand like the shell basics, fundamentals, and much, much more. So it's Windows, this is Linux. Like you get to learn the Linux commands, grep, egrep, fgrep, awkset, a bunch of really good stuff. And also we got Linux strength training for more like the challenges, and Linux CLI shells back, shells bells. If you did the Advent of Cyber for 2025, you will see this room. So I highly recommend these resources to help you get familiarity with the Windows and shell utilities. Awesome. And the way that I searched for those was I typed in Linux, free only, also Windows, free only as well. Awesome. Alright, scenario. It is a Monday in April. TryDaily is preparing a significant release. The EDR tool flags multiple binaries on various workstations during a routine alert sweep. You, the level 1 analyst shadowing your level 2 mentor, receive a curated triage package containing those samples. Within 60 minutes, you must provide evidence to showcase whether these files are bait, benign, or malicious. Alright, lab access. Before proceeding, start the lab by clicking the Start Machine button below. Alright. The VM will open in split view and take about 2 minutes to load fully. So we have the VM loading on the right. There we go. If it's not visible, click the Show Split View button at the top of the page. Once the VM loads on the right, you'll find case files on the desktop ready for analysis. Try detect this, accessible via the desktop shortcut, or by navigating to http tryhackthisk.thm8080 in the browser. We will use this platform to search for hashes, review vendor detections, inspect file properties, and analyze sandbox behavior. Note, due to the changing nature of threat intelligence, we have included all necessary data in our offline threat intel tool, TryHackThisk. So please only use the TryHackThisk tool to solve various questions in the tasks ahead. However, I will discuss about VirusTotal and the other tools with these links in the upcoming tasks because they're really important to mention. And overall, I want to share these resources with you so that way it helps your overall understanding and workflow as well. So that being said, let's dive into file threat intelligence with task 2, file names and paths. Alright, file names and paths, and when this thing loads, I'm going to view in full screen and then exit split view so that way we have this in more detail, but also view in full screen as well. Awesome. Alright, so that being said, task 2, file names and paths. You might encounter suspicious files such as setup.exe and must get as much context about it as possible. Human readable strings such as filepaths are the earliest heuristics available to an analyst. When alone, they do not prove maliciousness, but can reveal attacker tradecraft patterns when viewed with skepticism. So now file path analysis. File paths and names are like crime scene clues, revealing attacker behavior. Awesome. The VM has loaded on the right, so let's do view in full screen and exit split view. Awesome. File names and names are like crime scene clues, revealing attacker behavior. Attackers may use different disk locations to hide their actions and reduce visibility. For example, C, system drive can be a common target for persistence mechanisms. C user's public profile can enable cross-user access of designated adversary tools. And C user's public downloads provides a high traffic directory that would often evade strict monitoring. Additionally, adversaries may utilize other malware staging patterns, such as utilizing temporary directories such as C Windows Temp for familiar payloads, pasting payloads in writable system paths such as C program data for persistence. Alright, now for the file name heuristic indicators. If you don't know what heuristic is, don't worry, I'm going to help you break it down. Let's go to Google, type what is heuristics pertaining to cyber threat intelligence. Alright, there we go. In cyber threat intelligence and defense, heuristics refers to an experience-based rule-of-thumb approach used to detect and analyze novel or evolving cyber threats by examining their structural patterns and behavioral characteristics rather than relying on exact data matches. So overall, let me break it down. Heuristic design of flow. So what heuristics does is that it answers the question, does this look or act like a threat I've seen before? And the types of heuristics are static and dynamic. And why heuristics matters for threat intelligence is that heuristics bridge the gap between reactive defense and proactive threat hunting. For instance, here is the graph. Signature detection misses unknown altered code. Heuristic analysis, on the other hand, evaluates pattern behaviors and flags 0 days. So it can be helpful for catching obfuscated threats, 0-day discovery, and contextualizing attacker TTPs. But also you got to understand the false positives as well. So hopefully that helps you better understand what heuristics is. Awesome. Alright, now, file name heuristic indicators. Attackers are also known to modify file names to escape detection through implementing types of heuristic indicators, including double extensions. An example is invoice.pdf.exe, which leverages Windows default settings that hide file extensions. System binary impersonation. A file name such as scvhost.exe abuses the user's familiarity with core system processes. Defenders should include legitimate locations for system processes in an allow list rather than standalone file names. High entropy strings. A file name such as jh8f21.exe suggests automated packing or polymorphic generation, which is commonly used in a high-churn phishing operation. And now masquerading. Masquerading, so an example, file names such as backup-2300.exe can blend with routine files, thus leveraging on reduced suspicion. Another example is a single character substitution, which can bypass detection while looking visually legitimate to an unsuspecting employee. SOC analysis, Security Operations Center analysis, not the SOC, not the closed Security Operations Center. Analysts should become aware of these heuristic techniques and always flag and investigate alerts with these characteristics. All right, now we got a question. One of the files included in the CTI files folder on the desktop shows one of the indicators mentioned. Can you identify the file and the indicator? Also to note, I've already completed this room, but don't worry, I'm going to help you walk through my problem-solving methodology so that way you understand how to get to the answer. So that being said, we're going to answer the question, can you identify the file and the indicator? So we're going to go to the desktop. I believe this is the one, yes, full screen. We got CTI files. We're going to try to find one that has the correct characteristics of the indicators above. So we're looking for one that either has double extensions, system binary impersonation, high entropy strings, or masquerading. So let's go look. All right, let's click on. I want this one, PDF. That looks suspect. Properties, and if I can, application.exe. So we see that the file is called payroll.pdf. But actually the file is an exe. So we see two extensions, which means that this file is associated with double extensions. So let's see if this is our answer. Payroll.pdf. Awesome, and we got double extensions. Nice. All right, task 3, file hash lookup. We've identified suspicious heuristics from the sample files through path and name analysis. The analysis is inconclusive because attackers constantly rename files. We can tie the names back to the same binary through cryptographic fingerprinting through its file hash, especially SHA-256 and MD5 hashes. File hashes uniquely identify files and malware, regardless of name changes. Attackers constantly rename their malware hashes, however, hashes provide a mutable, actionable way to identify it. And also, it is advisable to work with potentially malicious binaries in a separate, isolated environment. We can generate and verify our file hash using the following commands below. So, also, a few pointers as analysts when dealing with hashes. Store the hashes in lowercase to avoid needless differences. Hash what matters in your investigation. For example, if the malware resides in a zip file, hash both the archive and the extracted binary, and do not leave plain strings without the context of where and when you counted them. And finally, any byte change will change the resulting hash. And now, analysis. Analysis of VirusTotal. In a production SOC, your next step will be to search for the hash on VirusTotal. So if we click on this, you will gain access to VirusTotal right here. It is a widely used threat intelligence service that aggregates scan results from dozens of antivirus vendors into a single report. There are several items from the search results that would be worth taking note of when you submit a hash, such as, for example, the detection score. This represents a crowdsourced security verdict from various vendors displayed as a ratio. Threat labels and categories. These are vendor-specific classifications of threats that help combine their attribution across vendors and detection rules. These are the technical signatures used by AV engines to identify threats. And properties. This is where the core metadata for the file is stored, including the file type, size, and compilation timestamp. It contains domains and IPs. This information covers the malware's network infrastructure. And finally, contained files. This section details any files embedded or dropped during the malware's execution. So we can see here below. So we got detection score, threat labels and categories, detection rules right here. Yes, detection. There you go. Got properties, contain domains and IPs, and contain files. So I highly recommend bookmarking VirusTotal. It is a really, really awesome resource. But also, since I mentioned VirusTotal, I want to highly recommend bookmarking this. I need to do. Nice, I got it. So what this does is that you can use any tool such as VirusTotal to do your investigation. So for example, the way to use this is by clicking on the light bulb. In step 1, you enter any IP address, domain, URL, or hash into the search bar. Step 2, you will click the add button. This will automatically append your input to each relevant OSINT tool's URL. It will update all the tool cards, so for example, all the tools mentioned under search tools, IP info, threat intelligence, and much, much more. You can click on any tool to open it, and your search input is already preloaded. And also here's the bonus tips as well. So just an example of how to do that. We will, let's just say we're going to do, I want a hash. Yeah, detection scores. Yes, we're going to help you. Here becomes a technical threat intelligence platform for the SOC to pivot towards actionable defense measures. So this is a breakdown of the sections in more depth, such as detection score and threat labels, upload time, signatures, properties, relations, and behavior. Let me see if I can find. There we go. All right, show hash of the file blogger. Let me show you guys how this works. So let me just do, for example, let me just do the hash of blogger. So open this. I assume if I can open a command prompt. I can't. That's fine. Open up a command prompt. Or do they want PowerShell? Alright, they want command prompt. Awesome. Command prompt. Let's run as administrator. Yes. Let's go to CD, paste this. dir. And then let's get the hash of blogger.exe. So we're going to do that. How we're going to do that is cert util dash. Let me move it to the middle so it's easier to see. Let me expand it. There we go. Cert util dash hash file blah.exe, and we want SHA-256. SHA-256. Awesome! Now we got our hash. So if I were to use, so if I am correct, I should be able to just do this, and then use OSINT Navigator. Nice! Now we're going to click on add, and we're going to now use VirusTotal. And now we see blogger.exe used with OSINT Navigator. But also, if you wanted to use other tools in the threat intelligence family, you can do that as well. Hash lookup, you got VT hash, mouse share, alien vault, and jote. Email header analysis, attack surface, file malware analysis. So we can do any run, we can use any run, do a sandbox, filescan.io, Cuckoo sandbox, and much, much more. Really, really great stuff. Malware feeds, notes and tools. Yeah, it's really powerful, so highly recommend. And also, all credit goes to Ekram0 for this really awesome website as well. I want to give credit where it's due. So yeah, I highly recommend using this website and overall bookmarking it because it provides you a lot of really great tools and websites for you to use for different workflows and overall scenarios. So, awesome. All right, we got our hash. Now we're going to answer some questions. Awesome. But before we do that, let's talk about MalwareBazaar. What is MalwareBazaar? MalwareBazaar is an all-in-one database for malware collection and analysis. The project supports the following features. Malware samples upload. Security analysts can upload their malware samples for analysis and build the intelligence database. This can be done through the browser or an API. Also, malware hunting. We can hunt for malware samples is possible. Hunting for malware samples is possible through various elements such as malware family tagging, YARA rule integration, campaign attribution, and sample availability. And also, in a production environment, you would search MalwareBazaar. Using the syntax is SHA-256 file hash. And for our case, TryDetectThis has integrated the vendor intelligence from VirusTotal and MalwareBazaar. Alright, we got our hash for. Let's go answer some questions. We got 5 questions. Nice. Alright, let's do this. What is the SHA-256 hash of the file blogger? It's going to be this because we use the cert utility command. Nice. Alright, we got that correct. Alright, what is the threat classification label used to identify the malicious file? So we're going to use VirusTotal. But also I believe we can also use TryDetectThis, so we're going to try to use that because he mentioned to use it. But if you want to, you can use OSINT Navigator and VirusTotal as well. Alright, so let's use TryDetectThis. Alright, click on open. Let's have fun. It's loading. And we should see it. Yes. TryDetectThis. Analyze suspicious files, domains, IPs, and URLs to detect malware and other breaches. Automatically share them with the security community. So let's search, paste. And we got file overview, name blogger.exe. And what we want to answer is, what is the threat classification label used to identify the malicious file? And we have a hint. Use the TryDetectThis platform, not VirusTotal. So we did that. And our answer is going to be Trojan.Great4Fly Studio. Very nice. Awesome. All right, next. When was the file submitted for analysis? First submitted for analysis. There you go. Our answer format is this. We have a hint. Use the TryDetectThis platform, not VirusTotal. I feel like this is going to be the hint for the rest of them, so let's use the platform. Alright, we're going to find when was the file first submitted for analysis. We're going to use TryDetectThis. And submitted. See the date and we see analyzed. And we want to answer the question first submitted for analysis. So I believe it's going to be 2025-05-15, 1203-49. Nice. Next. Which vendor classified the Morse code analyzer file as non-malicious? Let me guess. Use the TryDetectThis platform? That's right. Alright, so let's try to get the hash of the Morse code analyzer platform. So we're going to go to cert util. And instead of blogger.exe, we're going to get the SHA-256 hash of Morse code. So the Morse code analyzer.exe. We got our hash for Morse code analyzer.exe. And then paste it here. All right, see if I can just do this. And then again, paste. There you go. Awesome. Now we got our Morse code analyzer, and what we want to answer is which vendor classified the Morse code analyzer file as non-malicious? All right, malicious, suspicious, harmless, detected timeout. All right, so we got all vendor detections here, and we see that Cyber Fortress had a detection of clean and non-malicious, category as benign. For actions, we can see here. Vendor, result, and category. So let's see if that's our answer. Nice. We can see here. Result, clean, non-malicious. Alright. What MITRE technique has been flagged for persistence and privilege escalation for the most code analyzer file? So we're going to look for the MITRE technique that has been flagged for both persistence and privilege escalation pertaining to the Morse code analyzer file. So let's go here. We've got file properties, vendor analysis, MalwareBazaar, intelligence, under notes, tech DL, side loading behavior, DL side loading analysis, DL side loading, and technique mapping. I see DLL side loading associated with persistence and privilege escalation, and use of it was that it was flagged for persistence and privilege escalation because the application loads a malicious DLL by exporting the DLL search order. And if we can click on show more, ID, name, technique, persistence, and privilege escalation, and usage. So I'm going to say that DL side loading is the answer. Sweet. All right, moving on to task 4, sandbox analysis. Dynamic analysis for SOC. Static properties such as hashes, strings, and sections tell you identity. To understand the impact of malicious files, you need to execute them safely in a controlled environment. Sandboxes provide a disposable VM instrumented to capture every process, registry write, and network packet associated with the malware being investigated. Security analysts will use sandboxes to do 3 things. 1. Confirm execution. If nothing happens, your alert might be a decoy. Extract one-time IOCs, domains, multixes, drop payloads, feed hunts and detections, and map to attack. Most sandboxes auto-label behavior with technique IDs, fast-tracking your report. And as a level 1 analyst, you would use the sandbox's lookup features to quickly identify information about an obtained hash, while senior analysts would perform the other sophisticated tasks. Awesome. And now sandboxing tools. The most widely used tools for detonating wild malware are hybrid analysis and Joe Sandbox, each with its distinct application. For instance, for hybrid analysis, it focuses on behavioral trees and a clean MITRE ATT&CK heat map. It is suitable for a fast executive summary. Joe Sandbox, it goes deep, covering system calls, strings, and malware dumps. Great for reverse engineers and detection engineers. Alright. Analyzing the hybrid analysis report. When we search the file hash and analyze using the file hash and analyze the generated report from hybrid analysis, we can confirm that the file is malicious with a threat score of 100/100. Additionally, TryHackMe has all the details ingested for the remainder of the room. We are also provided with information about the file's risk behavior and the attack techniques the threat actor observed using. So you can see the generated report by hybrid analysis, and it's free. We like free. Awesome. And additionally, we can gather all file details and information to inform our threat intelligence report. Nice. These details are vital for threat reporting, both internally and externally, including file compositions, imports, processes called, and network connections. So we can see the file information here. Very, very nice. Alright, here's some sandboxing limitations that we need to understand. While sandboxing is a powerful tool for malware analysis, it has critical limitations that SOC analysis must account for when performing threat intelligence. Unquestionably, trusting sandbox results can lead to false negatives, misdetections, or incorrect conclusions. These limitations include, but not limited to, the following: sandbox invasion techniques. Threat actors will design their payloads to detect and invade sandboxes, leading to false negatives. Some of the common invasion techniques used include environment awareness checks, such as malware checks for signs of virtualized sandbox environments, and anti-debugging and anti-sandboxing tricks. Malware conducts debugger detection and checks for unique hardware IDs. Limited execution time and coverage. Most sandboxes terminate analysis after 2 to 5 minutes, which means multi-stage malware may not fully execute. For encrypted and obfuscated traffic, many sandboxes cannot decrypt SSL TLS traffic, leading to blind spots. This may result in HTTP C2 traffic appearing with no payload visibility, or the malware utilizing DNS tunneling to hide data in DNS queries. And finally, fileless and living up the land LOTL malware. Some threats never touch disk, bypassing traditional sandbox analysis by employing PowerShell attacks and WMI persistence. Now it is our turn. We're going to use the TryDetect tool to answer the questions below, such as what tags are used to identify the blogger.exe malicious file on hybrid analysis. We have a hint. Use the TryDetect tool to answer the question. Awesome. Alright, so we're going to use the hash for blogger.exe with hybrid analysis. Sweet. It's going to be fun. Alright, reconnecting to local machine. Of course you are. I did a refresh. Come on. You can do it. Connect. Connect. Awesome. Alright, it's mentioned to use blogger.exe with the TryDetect platform. Cool. Alright, if I remember, this is not the hash for blogger.exe. So we need the hash for blogger.exe, which we have here. So we can take this, we can paste it. And so tags are used to identify the blogger.exe malicious file on hybrid analysis. We can use TryDetect this platform. So here, see here, yeah. Detects Graph Door, Black Moon. I see Graph Door, Black Moon, Trojan family. Also the rules. So we see a rule name. Yeah, vendor tools. Alright, let's go to hybrid analysis. So let's take this hash. And let's see if I can search for hybrid analysis. If I can't, then we'll just use hybrid analysis, or better yet, OSINT, paste, add. Let's go to not hash lookup, although that's really awesome. File and malware analysis, and let's click on Era Joe Sandbox file scan.io. That's a really good one. We got Cuckoo and we got Joe. They do not mention hybrid analysis here, so I will show you that. Is it others? That's really awesome resources. So I am going to show you guys hybrid search tools. Hybrid analysis. It was under search tools. Nice. Alright, here we go. Alright, so what file scan.io, we can copy a, no, but if I can't remember. You can copy and paste the URL and it's going to show you information, any information pertaining to that URL. So I'd recommend this website. It is just a really great resource to help you better understand malicious files and all that really good stuff. Just a really great threat intelligence platform. Yeah, it's awesome. Alright. Joe Sandbox right here. It allows you, like anyone, to spin up your analysis architecture, define sample source, and choose analysis system. You got AI with agentic analysis, library interaction results, and settings, except terms and conditions. And also keep in mind, your complete sample analysis will be published on this website and accessible to anyone, including a download of the sample, screenshots, etc. So if you wanted to get a private account, upgrade to Cloud Pro. But since we're talking about free, because we love free, we're going to use hybrid analysis. Then we're going to use file and URL. And I believe I can just paste the URL here. Or can I just do report search? Yeah, report search. Alright, blogger.exe. Which is going to be, I believe, this one. So we're trying to answer the question blogger.exe with hybrid analysis. Cool. This one. And we got labels: Black Moon, Discovery, Fly Studio, and Trojan. Windows Server Utility. Windows Black Moon Discovery. Fly Moon and Trojan. I'm sorry, maybe we're missing one. Oh, Windows Utility. It must have gotten it from here. Yeah, that's why I can see Windows Server Utility. Vtext, GitHub, show more, Black Moon, arrows, generic, for blogger.exe, analysis, vendor maps. Yeah, Black Moon, Discovery, and Windows Server Utility. And if we wanted to use any run, not any run, hybrid analysis, we would also see these labels as well. Nice. Alright, so Black Moon, Discovery, and Windows Server Utility is our answer. Now, we're going to use hybrid analysis to answer the question, what was the stealth command line executed from the file? So we're going to go back. We're going to look at, let's see if I remember this question. Stealth command, so we're going to look at processes information. Undefined. Oh, what is this? Reg. Ooh, this looks very nasty. What is this? Let me take this. Let me see if I can. There we go. And copy. Please break down this command. Alright. The provided command is a stealthy technique used by system administrators and frequently abused by threat actors to register a Windows ActiveX control silently without displaying any user interface notifications. Here's the step-by-step breakdown of each component. First, reg svr32. It is the core Windows command line utility, and it stands for Registry Server 32-bit. And it is used to register or unregister object linking and embedding controls such as dynamic link libraries and ActiveX controls into the Windows registry. You also have WinDIR media, which is a standard environment variable that automatically expands to your primary Windows directory, typically C Windows media. And this media subfolder traditionally stores default system sounds. But also we have ActiveX.ocx, which is the target file being executed, and pertaining to the file itself in .ocx file is a specific type of DLL containing ActiveX controls. Note, Windows does not actively include a file named ActiveX.ocx. In the media folder, this path is highly characteristic of malware hiding in its payload in a benign looking directory. And -S is the silent switch. What it does is it suppresses all pop-up confirmation or error dialog boxes, allowing the registration to complete invisibility in the background. And that's how we have cyber threat intelligence context as well. Awesome. Alright, so hopefully this helps you better understand what each of the components are. Reg SVR32, the core Windows command line utility. Registry Server 32-bit. WinDIR media is a standard environment variable that automatically expands to your primary Windows directory. ActiveX.ocx is a specific type of DLL containing ActiveX controls. And -S is your silent switch. So I believe this is going to be our answer. Reg SVR32, WinDIR media ActiveX.ocx-S. Nice. Alright. Which other processes was spawned according to the process tree? Alright, so we got our process tree, and I believe it should show us more pertaining. We got files, screenshots, hybrid analysis, DNS, content kit host, country, traffic. I need shortcut alerts, structured files, informative. All right, we need to look for more because I believe we can't find which other processes was spawned according to the process tree. Unless I'm missing something. Because when I'm looking at the process tree here, let me see this. So I click on this. Oh, it's going to show me all the streams and all the good stuff. Nice. So let me see if I go back. So let me scroll up or do this. And instead of Windows Server Utility, so let me click on this one. And let's go to, this one should be our blogger.exe. Yes. Cool. And now we're going to go to fiber detail hybrid analysis. Reg SVR32 system resource. What am I missing? What am I doing wrong? Which process? Alright, fine. You want me to use this process tree? Of course. Parent process blogger.exe, reg svr32.exe is an ActiveX component registration, and our command is regfall.exe Windows error reporting, and here's our observed command here. What this command does is that the ls flag runs reg svr32 silently, suppressing dialog boxes. This is a living off the land LOTL technique using a trusted Windows binary. Just curious, let me use VirusTotal and click on, I believe it is processes. Processes is going to be in behavior. MITRE ATT&CK, HTTP request, communication, IP traffic, file system actions, files deleted, dropped, copied, all the good stuff. Registry actions, and processes, and registry keys, and processes, and services action. So it doesn't show WordFault.exe in here. So I'm going to say WordFault.exe is the answer because of the platform. TryHackMe platform, for some reason they want us to use this, but we're going to use it, and we got our answer. WordFault.exe. Awesome. Alright. Use the TryHackMe tool to answer questions. Okay, cool. Awesome. Alright, analyze the payroll.pdf file located in the CTI files folder and answer the questions below. The payroll.pdf application seems to be masquerading as which known Windows file? So we're going to go to the CTI files folder. We're going to look at payroll.pdf, and we're going to look at it to see what this thing is. Security details. I see original file name is svchost.dll. So it looks like this file is masquerading as svchost.dll. Nice. Alright, what associated URL is linked to the file? So let me see if we use the TryHackMe tool, and it should show us the URL. I believe it's going to be in network. Do we have a network section? Yara, file details, AV vendor detections, classification tags, process tree, registry activity, technique mapping, vendor detections. Do we not have a... Oh no, we have a... We did not have a network section. Gotcha. But I can use hybrid analysis. Blogger.exe for the win. Okay, hybrid analysis. Let's go look at network analysis. And I see that there is this domain, CDN, these domains right here. So you see network analysis, DNS requests, contacted hosts, countries, and HTTP traffic. Right here. And also relations to see the URLs. Awesome. Alright, cool. What associated URL is linked to the file? Use it to try to detect this tool and enter the file. Oh yeah, because we're using payroll.pdf, we need to use that hash instead of blogger.exe. Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. I need to use the hash for payroll.exe. So I need to use cert util dash hash file, then payroll.pdf.exe SHA 256. Now we got our hash. Copy this. Remove this hash. And paste this hash. For payroll.pdf.exe. Awesome. We got IDS rules. We got basic properties. We got contacted IPs right here. IP address 121.182.174.27. Detection 38 of 90. Country that last seen. We got sandbox and network indicators. Ooh. We see our URL. Awesome. Protocol, port, payload, and geo IP Republic of Korea. Very nice. Alright. I believe this is going to be our answer right here for our URL associated with payroll.pdf.exe. Nice. Alright. How many extracted strings were identified from the sandbox analysis of the file? So let's see how many extracted strings there is. So let's go find extracted strings. And I see that there is 454. And the notable strings include embedded URLs, registry paths, API function calls, and potential C2 configuration data. And if we go to here, just for curiosity, extracted strings, 2,327. But this is for blogger.exe. Let me go back. Report search. Let's include the hash for payroll.pdf.exe. And I want it this. Malicious. Can I click on this so I can see it? Very funny. No, I meant the report. Server.exe. More details. Trojan. Server.exe. It went to server.exe. I want payroll.pdf.exe. And I see that there's two. And it's for server.exe. Gotcha. And we got our associated URL. However, I believe in this case, try to detect this is going to give us the information, but still hybrid analysis is a really, really great platform to use for your dynamic analysis. There you go. And overall, that's a sandbox. All right, the extracted strings is 454. And for our threat intelligence challenge, let's get some practice. Now that we have looked at gathering threat intelligence to looking at file attributes, we will now have the opportunity to investigate a suspected file. Challenge.bin.sample. And we'll answer the questions below. All right. So let's go to challenge.bin.sample. Let's go get, and yes, now we got our sample file. Let's answer the questions. All right, what is the SHA-256 hash of the file? So let's get our hash for SHA for challenge.bin-sample. So we're gonna use cert util dash hash file challenge.bin.sample and then SHA-256. Nice. We got our hash right here. 43 this. Very nice. Awesome. All right, what family labels are assigned to the file on VirusTotal? So we're going to take this hash and then we're going to use VirusTotal. It's already a VirusTotal, which is awesome. So we use VirusTotal. And the labels that we got was ransomware.security file cryptor. So we got family labels, secure, file cryptor, and miscellaneous. Right here, secure file cryptor. Awesome. When was the first time the file was recorded in the wild? So let's figure out when was the first time the file was recorded in the wild. So let me go to VirusTotal. I see last analysis dates. It's going to be details or detection. Yeah, first seen in the wild. First seen in the wild. 2024-1030 17/17/24. Let's see if that's our answer. Nice. 17/17/24. Very nice. All right. Name the text file dropped during the execution of this malicious file. So we need to look at the text file that was dropped. So we're going to go to VirusTotal. And let's go see what we have for names. Portal executable info, simulations. You can see contacted domains, IP addresses, execution parents, dropped files. I see a text file called accuratereadme.txt, and it's malicious because you see 10 out of 61, and it's text file. So let's see if that's our answer. Awesome. And what PowerShell command is observed to be executed? So let's go look for command information. Dropped files, execution parents, contacted domains, contacted URLs. And for behavior, we should see PowerShell mentioned in not file systems, but processes. Registry keys, SVC. Here we go. PowerShell.exe-command, get WMI object win32, shadow copy, remove -WMI object. So let's see if that's our answer right here. Under the process and services actions section. Nice. And finally, what MITRE ATT&CK ID is associated with the actions of the command? So let's go back to VirusTotal and try to figure out the MITRE ATT&CK ID associated with this. So could you please define what is the MITRE ATT&CK ID for this command? Let me paste that. And provide resources to better understand each component. Alright, the specific command you provided maps directly to MITRE ATT&CK technique T1490, which is inhibits system recovery. This technique falls under the impact tactic, and it is a signature move commonly leveraged by ransomware groups such as Accurately Ransomware and Networker to silently destroy local system backups, and by doing so, they ensure a victim cannot simply restore the data using built-in Windows features after files are encrypted. And this is the component breakdown and resource guide, PowerShell.exe-command, and get WMI object right here. Win32 shadow copy, and the pipe operator. It removes -WMI object, what it is. And for learning resources mentioned as well. So hopefully that better understands you what this command does, but also the technique ID that we're looking for is going to be T1490. So hopefully that is our answer. Nice. Alright, congratulations on completing the room. Threat intelligence is integral to a SOC workflow that enriches unknown binaries encountered by threat alerts. So, congratulations. Key takeaway. We validated evidence before analysis. We confirm you have the exact binaries and hashes. We analyze file paths and file names for quick context. Unusual storage locations, trusted software directories, and naming tricks. Highlight items that warrant deeper review. Another key takeaway is generate hashes early to pivot into external or internal knowledge bases. observe runtime behavior in a controlled environment to confirm intent, extract network and persistence indicators, and map activity to recognize attack techniques. And finally, translate findings into a brief that lists indicators by type, summarizes behavior, and provides proportion recommendations supported by evidence. And we got one more question to answer. I'm ready to continue with more threat intelligence. And the answer is correct because there's no answer needed. Awesome. And the resources that we used in this room was hybrid analysis, VirusTotal, OSINT Navigator, and a lot of really awesome resources as well. And also, this is CyberSec Tools. It's the largest platform to find cybersecurity tools, both paid and free. So if you want to, I highly recommend checking out this website. It's completely free and it allows you to search, compare, and evaluate cybersecurity products and the companies behind them all in one place, independent and vendor neutral. So that way, if you wanted to learn more about a company or product or tool, this is a really great website for that. So I'm going to bookmark it because it's going to be really helpful. Let me see here. Awesome. And also we use AI as well. Alright. I hope you enjoyed my file and hash threat intel TryHackMe walkthrough. Again, this room is completely free, but I hope you guys had a lot of fun enjoying this walkthrough. Have a great day, and I will see you guys for the next walkthrough. Peace.